get everyone's attention, I want to call the fiscal court into session for this regularly scheduled joint meeting of the city commission and the fiscal court. And I will ask the mayor if he would do the same for the city, and then ask that he would lead us in a word of prayer, and we'll follow that with pledge to the flag.
I will call the regular meeting of the City Commission and the Simpson County Fiscal Court into order, and I'll lead us in prayer. Father, we thank you for the day. Lord, we thank you for the many blessings that you give us. Lord, we thank you most of all for your great love, your mercy and grace. And as we go into this meeting today, we would ask that you would be with every person here. I pray that you would speak to our hearts and speak to our minds and give us the words and the things that you would have us to do and to have us to say that would benefit our whole community. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to meet with our county government, city government together to do the work that you have planned for this community. Lord, we just ask that you would bless those that are suffering from illnesses today. I pray that you will just bless every person and that they will feel your presence in their lives. Lord, we thank you for the day again, and we ask these things in your name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mayor, under our regular business, we have discussion and possible action regarding the Franklin Simpson Planning and Zoning fee schedule, and we have Mr. Carter Mundy, the Planning and Zoning Administrator. I think he's got a presentation that we'll be able to see on the screen, but I think you've got it in the paperwork also, maybe.
We do have Carter.
Thank you, Mason. Mayor. Greetings. Each distinguished member of the commission and the fiscal court. Basically, this is the third edition, I want to say. We've come before both bodies with this unique opportunity to present plan and zoning financial status and the rate increase proposal on this third try for some sort of rate increase. If you recall, last year we tweaked it in 3 different places, and that helps. In this financial status and this report will show you not only that impact that we made last year, but the also what's on the horizon and where we stand year to date. Status from January of 21 to August 21, this year to last year's comparison to the same period. We had building permits. This year we've committed to 225 permits. Same period as last year was 187. New home builds this year to date is 91. Same period last year was 81. In the blue outlined to the side is the difference from year-to-year impact. Electrical permits, we've had a unique 12% increase as well. Building inspections booked, we're up 10.6 over last year, and the same thing with electrical inspections, up 10.6%. Address assigned, we're considerably up 25.4%. As you recall, last year we imposed a $25 fee for assigning addresses. Up to that point, we've been doing it free. And of course, the MSP is abbreviated for minor subplats. Last year we did 66. We're up another 25.7% there at 83 this year. Zone map amendments, this is a big number. We've done 26 of them year to date. Same period last year we'd only done 11, and I thought that was a big year. Those require public hearings and a vote and come before the jurisdictional governing body. So they're quite lengthy. and several steps in the process. But to be up 136% over last year indicates growth in a more insidious way that this is the direction we're going, regardless of what each individual thinks in this room.
Each one of those would have resulted in a zone change from one particular zone to a different zone.
Exactly. So that can impact a leading indicator to a community. That's the first thing I would look at, is how many zone changes they've done in the last 3 to 4 year trend. And that's a leading indicator to show how a community's changing, because each one of those zones represent a certain use allowance. And if they're changed, then a direction is taking place, a new direction for a piece of property. What's on the horizon? This is the numbers that I deal with every day. These single-family homes at 390 units, they're ready for permitting, or they're under construction now. And multifamily dwellings is roughly near, it's a little bit over 200, but I place it at 200 because the projects haven't really, we've only got one project that's dug into the ground and got lumber on the site. So with that said, I know what's coming down the pike, and these numbers are equivalent to those numbers that you see on the board. The 110 units that's in engineering right now with single family, that was a result from a zone change that was most recently done last month on one parcel of land, one subdivision development. The multifamily dwellings are out there still in engineering right now. I haven't seen the first plans. Some of them, one of them's coming due, which is 96 units. They're wanting to try to get a final here next month on the 5th of October. Don't know whether they're going to make that deadline or not, but we'll see. Future conservative, and this is speculation for development. These are basically people that have called in. Some have submitted drawings. One, in fact, we'll introduce in a preliminary on the 5th. Multifamily, townhomes, and single family. So it's indicative to what our community is going. As you recall, all that I just showed you is all residentially driven. The financial status, the P&Z, begins with the fiscal year 03 and 04, when the department first came into government. And as you can see, it's broken down into revenue that year, the expenses that year, the annual net over or deficit, and the cumulative net over deficit across the board up to 11-12, and then it continues on the second line. As you can see, the year-to-date deficit is $1,580,000. Average annual deficit over the last 4 years has been per month of $111,000, or per year $111,000. The cumulative deficit of 1.6 million since 2003. Deficit is funded by the city and county taxpayers. Rate information that we see right now is where we left off last year this time, where we discussed probable changes that could induce a little more revenue to the mixture, and we have brought it up considerably, and it's helped with that deficit number. I'm not suggesting that we settle with that. I'm suggesting that we move forward. If you recall, we added in the address point at $25, and we upped the inspection fees to $50 from the previous 10 that had been there since the mid-'80s. The COO remained the same at $50, and a permit total of $425, and this is based on a particular rate of 2,500 square foot home on the average. The permit would run $425. The electrical permit would run $225. That's where we are today. The typical 3,000 square foot duplex would run $630, and the 400 electrical, and the typical multifamily at $6,000. That's where we average see them. $1,040 and $750 on electrical, respectively. Mm-hmm.
On the single family, you've got inspection $50 visit, and then down on duplex and multifamily, you have $50 visit 3 times. And I know typical inspection on residential, multifamily, or duplex would involve footer, foundation, framing, and final. So it's typically 4 visits, even on a residential. So what are we just charging?
Well, your footer and foundation would be a 1 visit, but we have no way of guaranteeing that the framing on both sides of the dwellings too are going to be built at the same time they call in. There may be a lumber shortage, what have you. We've gotten into that a few times where we showed up and we had one side finished, but we didn't have the other side.
How are we doing the footer and foundation inspection at the same time? I mean, the reason I'm asking
No,
that.
no, I'm saying 1 visit takes care of individual. So you got 1 footer, 1 foundation.
Right, on the duplex, I get that. On the duplex, you've done 1 footer for both, or 1 footer, you've done 1 foundation. But you do a framing and then you do a final. So I know there's at least 4 visits, but there's only 3 fees. And in the single family, there's 4 visits, but only 1 fee.
You make 4 visits on each individual dwelling.
Right, but I'm only seeing 3 on multifamily, 3 on duplexes, and only 1 on, unless I'm missing something there. It's $50 per visit. On the single family, I only see it there 1 time.
On the duplex, you got 1 visit for the footer, 1 visit for the foundation. Then you might have 2 visits on the framing and final independently.
It says times 4 outside of that.
Oh, I wasn't looking in that column,
And
I'm
it
sorry.
says, on that one, it says times 8.
Okay, I'm with you now. I wasn't
Okay.
seeing the multiplier out there, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Surrounding communities, that slide didn't come up for some reason. I don't know. Oh, okay, here we go. If you recall, back in 2017, I showed this to the governing bodies that day, and we found out that how everybody fared up on a 5,000 square foot home at $500,000 cost. And I just grabbed those numbers out of the air. And I worked the permit up accordingly to our surrounding sister communities. And Bowling Green seemed to be leading the charge on that ratio. Warren County and Scottsville seemed to come in at 750, and then Glasgow at 600. We came in a miserable 350 on a particular construction project that size. Surrounding communities planning and zoning fee rates on the same 2,500 square foot home today. I included Russellville in here. You got Glasgow at 400, Russellville at 425, Scottsville at 375, Warren County 375, and Bowling Green's at $1,118. Franklin now is about 425, which is better. We've improved. The impact from the level of construction activity seems indicative to higher rate charge. As everybody in this room knows how Bowling Green's grown the last 10 years, and they continue to grow. We're at the tip of the iceberg, basically. We're not seeing the growth that they do. We see more residential growth than we have in the last 3 years. I would suggest that regardless of the construction activity that's going on, impacts the community in a greater way than one would perceive, that roads, congestion, traffic, utilities, everything is impacted down the way. And because we're seeing the growth that we're seeing, I mean, it's no secret, I've heard it from time to time, people have talked about how quick this little community we live in is growing. it would suggest that we probably need to do more in terms of our rates to try to protect ourselves. Not so much to gather up what's due ours, but to cover our costs. It's kind of protect ourselves, because we're going to see things that we have no way of knowing that's going to happen once we start this construction. And one or two things could happen. We wind up with projects that are not finished. Companies run out of funding. They decide they don't want to do it. Then we're worse off than what we were when we began. So I'm suggesting that more construction activity provides more impact risk to community character and infrastructure, thereby explain the increased rate that we see in the neighboring Bowling Green. They charge different than the way we do. They charge by the cost of the project, much the way we do our electrical on the industrial side and commercial side. Don't know if reinventing the wheel is good for what we need here. I think the solution would be is to raise our rates again to try to control our costs. Otherwise, we're suggesting we're going to keep our rates the same because we feel more comfortable subsidizing permit fees. That's where I'm getting to. If the rates have been adjusted for inflation since 1986, we would have seen that typical 2,500 square foot home to be at a 149% increase at 1,057 from 425. Same thing with a 3,000 square foot duplex at 149% increase. Same thing with the 6,000 square foot multifamily at 148% increase. And the same thing across the board on the electrical inspections. We would have seen a 225 typical 2,500 square foot home go from 225 to 868. That's a 286% increase. And same way down the board to a duplex and to a multifamily. Huge increases. Based on the estimated of new construction inspections for 2022, provided that the economy stays the same, this is what I anticipate based on what we have in the pipeline today. We may close out this year at 135 to 140 single-family homes permitted, provided that the economy stays strong. We're at 91 today. Who knows what this month will close out? Same way with the duplexes. We may see 25 this time next year and 25 multifamily. We certainly got enough on paper downstairs on my drawing board that's in the mill. So if those numbers hold true with those previous rates that I just explained, we'd see a $336,100 in additional funding. I don't recommend we go that way. I recommend we look at this. We take our 6 cent square foot and go to 12 cents. That's what I recommended this time last year. However, I take another look at the inspections. These two inspectors go out in their personal vehicles and expel their personal gas and depreciation to their personal vehicles to do these inspections. I think we should compensate each of those individuals for that in a way of increasing the rate per visit at $75. I also know that our address pointing is becoming more and more frequent as we permit these homes and these structures being built on vacant lots. And I think that we should increase that from $25 to $30. And I'm recommending we increase our COOs, which has been $50 for ever since I can remember, to $75. That would be an increase of 66% to catch us up with the current day and age of what we should be charging. I feel comfortable that those numbers are good. Also, on the other side of the board, if you refer on electrical inspections, we would take a permit fee from $25 to $50. That's the administrative fee associated with logging in the inspections as they call in and making sure the permits are printed out so the inspector can take them to the site and inspect properly. The inspection fee to $75 and from $50, and then taking that up from $225 to $350 and on down the board, which brings us to a 56% increase. And here's why I say that we should settle for this, because as you recall earlier, I was mentioning that year to year, we've been running $111,000 on the average deficit. If we did that, we should see, based on the estimated revenue numbers that I just shared with you, we should see an increase of $108,375. That goes a long way about truing it up to what it should be today. The additional fees should pick up the rest of it. As I alluded to earlier, how many minor subplats we had done this year, and the increase from $60, and it's been $60 since 2014 when we first adopted it, to $100, conditional use permit from $100 to $300, home occupational certificate from $50 to $100, lot line modifications from $75 to $225, variance requests, $75 to $225, because they run in pretty well consortium of each other. It's like an local option, whichever one they want to pick. Development plan review from $200 to $400. Zone map amendments, $150 to $300. Major subdivision plat fees, $75 to $150 each. Each lot up to $20 from $15 to $30. Each lot over $20 from $8 to $16. And the base minimum fee of $15 to $30. And the reason I look at those major subdivision plat fees, that seems to be the core of where I spend my time day to day. I'm looking over subdivisions, and I'm looking at lots and how they're situated to the street. I'm measuring down the street. I'm counting up the lots. I'm looking at the square footage of a lot. I'm looking at a plot plan on a building permit, and I'm looking at the coverage on this lot and looking at the percent and how it works within our zone, whatever the zone is, to the dimensions that are required under the regulations. I don't feel like the time that I spend in doing that the county or the city's even being compensated like it should be. And again, the majority of those fees, with the exception of 2 or 3 up there, have not been touched. And I'm talking they existed pre-1986. Some of those go back to the inception of when this plan and zoning first come out in 1963. The 2 new charges proposed is local site jurisdiction verification. Basically, we have emergency management on a lot of these larger buildings and industrial sites that are being built that we're out of the mix on. And being out of the mix on, emergency management gets a call to go out there, they don't know where to go. This will help true that up. It brings the plan and zoning into the mixture, and we get a drawing of what it is, and that same drawing can be transmitted over to the fire department and emergency management. They know when they get there where to go. They've got something to articulate before them. What are the entry points of this building? Also, the 4.3A minor development plan review, I spent a lot of time on those. We don't get anything for that. We have no fee charge for that except for the building permit. And it's usually a small home, as those of you that know that is conducive to a small house, which is not a lot of permit under the present structure. I think we should charge a fee for that. Usually those things to review takes a good 4 hours to 6 hours of my time, communicating back and forth, getting the parties to touch base and communicate with each other.
That's
That's the recent regulation we just done.
I think that's too low, Carter. I think you need to at least have 75 on that. I agree with you. That's a lot of work for $35.
I work cheap.
Just my 2 cents worth.
Current rates in effect since 1986. Expenses incurred with inflation, but revenues have not just been adjusted. Recommended rate increases effective January 22nd. Estimated increase annual revenues to $108,000, eliminating the planned zoning annual deficit subsidy from both the city and the county. These rates will catch up the rates to close to what they should be at this time and possibly curb the rate of construction. Observed strictly from the availability of land that is cheap priced in comparison with the land along the I-65 corridor. I recommend updating the permit rates annually based on the current inflation rates. We impose a consumer pricing dicks to that upon the meeting of both these parties, governing groups annually, and agree on a rate increase for the following year. And we impose that in January. Any questions?
I got a couple questions. One, I agree with, I think it's long overdue rate increases. I don't know yet that I would say absolutely today we should do it annually, but obviously we should do it more frequently than every 35 years. But I think we should look at it annually and see if there needs to be an adjustment. But I have a question here. Do we track these zone changes that we do and our building permits? Do we track, or do you have an estimate of just an educated guess as to how many of these zone changes are done by folks from outside of Simpson County versus people inside Simpson County, and the building permits the same way? How many of those are issued to builders, developers outside of Simpson County versus inside Simpson County?
There was, and I think you've heard me refer to this, there's 4 major builders that are local people in Franklin. Up until after we did the rate structure changes we did last year, we started seeing permits from outside builders, mostly from Bowling Green. Few from Tennessee, but mostly from Bowling Green. And they seem to be consuming a lot of the 4 major developments lots. They buy a lot here, they buy a lot there, they submit an application. I recognize that they're from out of town, and they're pretty well ready to put shovel to dirt. They're not breathing down their neck, wanting a permit, hurry up, review it, give them a permit. It's not like they treat it like a drive-through window. They're willing to wait because they're accustomed to what they do in Bowling Green. But I do realize that just at midway, probably around March and April, I started being contacted by outside sources, and I'm talking about far away from California. We've got 2 projects, or absolutely 2. One of them's coming up for preliminary, October 5, that the major representation is from a financial company based out of California. And that's a big project, and it's multifamily in a business zone. And they're including some business in the plan, but the most part is they all have the same language. Franklin's being targeted. This particular party is doing some projects up around Western. That's how they stumbled across Franklin. They came in, seen the downtown square, they seen the community, and started pricing land, and that was really attractive at that point. Same thing, there's another one based their offices in Nashville, but their home base is in Texas. Largest home builder in the United States. Traded on the stock exchange. And they're trying to push a project in, and it's going to require a rezone. And I've been in talks with them just about every other day on some topic of the discussion. We had a meeting Friday and discussed it in depth. They're partially lukewarm to the idea, but there's some infrastructure changes that are going to have to be made to accommodate their needs. I don't know that the site is the best site for them. I certainly don't go around selecting the sites for them. They need to do their own diligence. But to answer your question, yeah, there's about a handful. I can count them on one hand already that's contacting me from out of state. And as far away, 3 of them from California. So there's a migration happening. And those growth numbers that I just showed there, indicative over last year, they're going to continue to rise provided the economy supports it.
Well, I have no problem with the rate changes. I think one thing that we all should understand is that I think having inspectors locally is a benefit to us, and it's a safeguard to the community and the people that locate here. But also, I also do believe that if the rate structure was such that the city and the county government wasn't having to subsidize the planning and zoning office as much. There could be better use of that tax money at the planning and zoning, kind of paying its own way, so to speak, just through permit and review fees. It's just hard to fathom that it's been at least 35 years since there's been rate increases to building permits.
The building permit fees that already probably should have been done 20, 30 years ago. As you and I talked this morning, our electrical fees on residential, well, we're kind of on the high side at our current rates, kind of on the high side in our area. If this would, and I agree with you, Mason, we need to offset our cost, planning and zoning. But I'm getting a tremendous amount of pushback in the South District. You and I have discussed a lot of things. There's a major project in discussion now in the South District. And this might deter, might slow a little bit, but if any, very little bit. But I don't have a problem with the fees, although I think on our electrical fees, if we went to a percentage like we do on our commercial, then it's always self-adjusting. It goes with the market. Whatever goes up, material goes up, the inspection fees just follow. So we don't, that may be something we need to look at on the electrical end. I don't know about the building end, but if we used a percentage similar, whatever Bowling Green uses, then it's going to self-adjust, so we don't have to do this year after year after year. Something to think about. But getting back to I'm searching for the word, maybe we're just overwhelmed with the residential and apartment growth. There's nobody that I know of that's living in our community right now that could tell you they've ever experienced this. So we can't look back. We have nothing to look back at. But there's a lot of things that's going to go with this growth that I think that we need to look at, is that it will affect our school district. It will affect our roads. Some of these things we can't get enough tax revenue out of to subsidize the extra amount of services that we're going to be mandated to serve. So I'm very concerned. I like growth, but it appears that we have people coming in our town that are, the industrial growth is phenomenal. Can't have anything negative to say about that. But evidently we have people that are coming in this community just to live. And when it's time to go to work, they're going to jump in their vehicles and they're going to go right back to Bowling Green, Nashville, or wherever they're at. But I do think we need to look at our growth, about how it's going to affect our school districts, our sheriff's department, our jails, our police department, our infrastructure. There's just a lot of things that, and Mason and I have talked about this here, our land mass won't support with just so much. Now, I do appreciate these people, out-of-towners coming in here, but I don't want out-of-town people deciding what's good for Franklin and Simpson County. I want us to decide what's good for Franklin and Simpson County. So, I guess enough said on that. I need to get that off my chest, and I hope so. I'll turn it over to anybody else.
Carter, you made a comment in one of your slides that, some of these increasing rates would help deter the growth. And I agree with you. I think that will do that. And we do need to deter that. I know we're not going to stop it. We can hopefully deter it, slow it down. I think you also commented that they're coming here because of the cheap land. I think that's probably going to adjust itself as well. Marty, you're a farmer, and these people who are selling their farmland, you know, as they see these people are wanting it more and more, they're gonna go up on those acres. So hopefully that will deter some as well. And Kenton, I know that the city commission has looked at the new regulations for subdivisions. I'm hoping that that's going to come to pass very, very soon. That's going to be one more thing that's hopefully going to deter some of these builders. I'm not saying that we're going to stop it. I'm not saying that they're not going to still come, but hopefully this will deter them and slow them down so that we can take the time to make our regulations, our planning and zoning regulations better so that we can take care of the growth and like he said, you know, keep our school systems from being overwhelmed and our infrastructure. We've got to make sure that we do the right thing now. It's too late after it's already done to go back and do it. It's
Definitely
too
in
late.
our responsibility to maintain that integrity is not just run over and we lay back. I strongly urge both bodies in this room today to take action in that initiative to protect this community. Our regulations, obviously, if they follow the regulations, we still wind up with things we really don't want. And that's not enough protection.
You said about the land. Personally, I think you could take these rates and double them again, and it's not going to deter any of the growth that's going on right now. Out in the Gold City community, that is going to be one of the hottest growing areas. When they put that interchange in at 240 and I-65, and you can be on the interstate in 10 minutes, Gold City, Rapids, all that area out in there that you can go through, that is going to be Woodburn. I mean, of course, Woodburn's not in Simpson County, but any Blackjack, any of that is going to be growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, I mean, farming is my living, but if you take a piece of ground and you can get $200 an acre a year out of it, or somebody comes by and offers you $25,000 or $30,000 for it, that's a tough decision.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've said all along, the only way to truly control a piece of land is to own it. But I can't afford to give what a developer can give for a piece of land.
No.
And, you know, you like I say, you can take these rates and double them again. And if the people have the money to put the houses on it, all they're going to do is pass it on to the consumer. You're not taking any money out of their pockets. So I agree. I mean, we need good growth. We need to plan for these, but maybe requiring these developers to bond the roads and the infrastructure
Some type of impact.
and doing the things that you think it's going to affect, make them pay for that. If they're causing the problems that you need a wider road or better roads, I know from planning, my experience with planning and zoning, that hasn't ever been looked at in the past, but it should.
We do that in the city.
Yeah, but it should be done in the county.
It should be done
Yeah.
in the county.
And it should be made where if a developer is causing an impact, they should be bonded and made to pay for that impact. That's my opinion.
We'll be happy to send you the subdivision rates when we pass them.
Yeah,
We-
and what
we-
was that age on that, 1997?
We, I mean, we've had it for years, but we've really ramped it up on what we require from developers where we don't get hung out to dry.
And I agree, I agree with most everything that Myron and Brownie both said, but I will respectfully disagree with the part that Marty's disagreeing with, because I agree with Marty on this. These fees we're talking about changing, it's not gonna slow these people down. It's not gonna deter the building. It's not gonna change it. Because we're so far behind, it doesn't even matter. I mean, you take these fees and compare them to what they're used to in the areas they're doing this, they're still gonna be low compared to what they're typically dealing with. We just had a meeting last week with some folks that was talking about it cost $100,000 to get the permits just to start building a house, 2,500 square foot. The permits just to start. Do you think $700 is gonna bother anybody? is $100,000. So you're kind of talking about everything we're talking about, and I was going to talk about this at the end, but I'll bring it up real briefly right now. I've been working on this growth plan committee. We're meeting again Wednesday, and I'm hoping Wednesday that we have some of the first phase to present to the fiscal court and the city commission about what we would recommend to do dealing with some growth. And I think, and I won't get into this right now until after we meet Wednesday, but something, Carter, you mentioned, I think we're going to have to look at is some of this conservancy districts, and we're going to have to place some property there because we only have so much land. And once it's gone, it's gone. There's no way we can replace it. The only thing not being produced anymore today is land. We've got, and all of that's not holding together. There's things in floodplains today that wasn't in, well, May of 2010, Bob, you're in here, there were areas placed in the floodplains in May of 2010 that was not in floodplains prior to that. So then you take what land you had, and some that we considered usable land prior to May of 2010 is now unusable land. So we're,
Land usable has gone down.
yeah.
That's because every time you put a roof or a
Yes.
sidewalk or a road,
Every
it creates more
impervious
runoff.
thing you put on a piece of property changes the water flow, what's going on with all of it. So I am absolutely for controlled, sustainable growth, but we cannot have uncontrolled wild growth. But this question at hand here today is, does this make sense for our planning and zoning rate changes? And all I say is, I'm in favor of it. I mean, we've talked about this and talked about this. I don't know if this is proposed by January of 2022.
It is.
Then,
So these rates would take effect January 2022?
if approved by both bodies.
Right.
Y'all,
Well, and we can't do it today, we gotta do it
Yeah.
by ordinance. So
Yeah.
here's my suggestion. My suggestion is if the city commission's okay with it, you give me two sponsors, I'll put an ordinance together. Won't be this meeting, but the next meeting, and you all can piggyback
I'll
on
be a
that. I can
sponsor
send
this
it to
time.
Sam.
I'll be a sponsor.
We got at least two, so.
You're good? All right, so we'll work on getting the ordinances together. I mean, I think, this makes, here's the thing. This makes sense even if we didn't have people coming out of the woodwork to do development.
Well, as you said, waiting 35 years is probably,
No,
in retrospect, not the best
it's
idea
not
in
the
the
most
world.
prudent business model.
35 years, and we've talked about it 3 times over the last year and a half.
And
So
if we need to look
It's
at
time to
planning and
act.
It's time to
zoning,
move.
we need to look at the planning and zoning about what I was talking about, the impact fees or bonding, those things. We need to be looking at that.
And Marty, to your point, right in your district, and Carter and I talked about this on this particular road, Hack Brown Road.
Yes.
We almost need to look at outside the city limits, because it looks like y'all are working on something on the subdivision reg. But having, and I don't know how you get this, Bobby, you may be familiar with this, how you come up with how many houses per road mile should be on a road based on the width of the road. And so like if you've got a road that, how wide is Hack Brown Road?
Almost, I was gonna say almost 10 foot in
It
places.
seems like
It
it.
seems like
So on 16-foot wide roads, you could have X number of residences per mile. And then once you start issuing permits beyond that, you're gonna have to have some kind of impact fee, because at some point you've got to widen that road.
Yep.
There. So we're good to do ordinances both sides. Let's move right along. Now this one's discussion or possible action regarding guidelines for use of downtown. And so, guys on the court, y'all will see that the city has put together some type of an ordinance. I don't know that what we would need, because y'all have to deal with shutting down the street, closing the streets, and what happens on the street. We basically deal with what happens on the courthouse lawn. So what I have talked about with Kim at Renaissance, I've talked about this with Kenton, I think, before, and I've talked about it in our office and with Bill, is for activities other than your typical weddings or little family gatherings that people want to use on the courthouse, but for like big events to happen on the courthouse lawn, we may need to revisit those Renaissance guidelines and have either one of the other of the government bodies or quasi-governmental agency be a sponsor or a co-sponsor to that event, such as tourism or Renaissance or the chamber. If somebody's wanting to do an event, get one of these entities to be a co-sponsor to it for it to happen on the courthouse lawn. But
I only sent this for your all's information. It's something we're considering. The commission hasn't even really acted on it or seen it. I just put it together. What it says in a nutshell is for alcohol-related events, you gotta have a nonprofit. It can't be a for-profit organization doing this to promote business or whatever. It's gotta be a nonprofit, something that's a charitable type organization to do an alcohol-related event, like we did with the concert. Other entities can do it for non-alcohol events, but again, this is just for, we didn't know if you all wanted to
would
look
the
at
city
this.
ordinance allow a street to be closed down if John Doe come in and said, hey, I want to close down the road because I want to have a big gathering up here of whatever kind?
It depends on the type of gathering and what its impact's gonna be on the roads, the rest of the community, our police force, blah, blah, blah. If it's alcohol related, no, it has to be nonprofit, but if it's non-alcohol related, potentially, I mean, you know, Mason, you're on the city commission. People come in, wanna close this over here by the Methodist Church, if for no other reason than to have a fundraiser for little Johnny who's in the hospital or whatever. I mean, so you can't put you can't think through every little scenario, but.
Well, I take back like the fundraiser type. I mean, if it's something the community's going to get behind, I think one of these entities would sponsor that fundraising event.
I think that it is a slippery slope to have a particular governmental or quasi-governmental entity sponsor an event.
Yeah.
Every time.
Of course,
Because you got liability involved in
Yeah.
that, and I don't think that they will be able to
Well,
put their name behind something.
In this, they have to come up with their own insurance or bonding or whatever. You don't put our names in it, it doesn't put us at liability risk.
Of course, the events that request the city to close down streets are typically a little different than the requests we get for things to happen on the courthouse lawn.
Well, but sometimes they go hand in hand.
True.
And
Like the
again,
car show.
I don't want to beat this to death, I just want
But
to
the car show did have the chamber as a sponsor, now has the Franklin Simpson Arts Council as a sponsor.
No, gallery on the square.
Oh, the gallery on the square, okay.
Well, again, I don't want to beat this to death. I want to bring it to you for your information to see if you all wanted to consider some of this in the use of the lawn itself. And that's all. Kenton asked me to throw it on here, so we did. And
But I do think we need to do something there.
well, we didn't have a choice. We keep getting inundated with requests. We had to put something together, some uniform set of rules that people have to follow to close the square, so we don't run into trouble.
Mayor, anything else on that one?
No, I'm good.
All right.
No, I think
So-
Scott's covered everything real well, so we,
Next will be discussion or possible action regarding emergency management radio communication reliability, and that'll be Bob Palmer. I also asked, Bob, I asked Matt to come today, because Matt had a real experience, a couple of weeks ago? Last week. That at some point, I want Matt to share what happened while he was out.
You want to go first? Just giving you the option. First, I want to thank the city and the county for letting me come up here and talk for a few minutes about a need. It's not really a want. It's not something that in the emergency services world that we really, we want, but it's because it's needed. I don't know how much knowledge everybody has about our current radio communication system. In 2006, the Franklin Simpson Ambulance Service acquired a grant that replaced every radio on a firefighter, EMT, police officer, in their cruisers, all of the radios and dispatch, the base stations, everything was completely replaced with an LTR trunking system. The trunking system that was purchased and put into operation was more, would have been more suitable to be used in a large factory setting. It wasn't necessarily made for emergency services for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That system served our community very well. It lasted a long, long time, but in 2017, we started having really big problems with the trunking capabilities of that system, where the wear and tear on the system got to the point where we would have the technicians come in and tune the system. They'd take the cover off of the controllers, tune the system. We would operate it, standing there talking on it for a few minutes, put the covers back on, and just by putting the covers back on those controllers, it knocked it out of tune to where it didn't function properly. So we elected to remove the trunking capabilities, which gives you more interoperable communications capabilities. We took that out and made it a straight channel in, channel out analog system, and that's what we're functioning with today. As we continue to operate, the system continues to deteriorate to a point where it's not far, and when I say not far, I'm saying within the next couple of years probably, we're at a point where it could become dangerous. For some stopgap measures, the ambulance service has purchased a new repeater and some portable radios. The city police have purchased a repeater and new radios for their personnel and their vehicles as a stopgap measure to carry forward the system as it is. In most environments, that might work out. The situation that we're in, there's other things coming down the pike. Kentucky State Police, who does our 911 dispatch, are in a process of building out from west to east a networking system. They're basically going to cast a net over the entire state. And and it's going to be at 700 and 800 megahertz digital. And if you participate or join their networking, then a police car or a jail vehicle or whatever the case may be, sheriff's deputy, whoever might be transporting a prisoner or whatever, maybe to Pikeville or someplace a long ways away, if they have a problem with the car or whatever, they can turn the radio, key the microphone, and talk to our own dispatch from a long ways away. That's coming. That's probably at best 3 to 4 years away before that's going to build into our area. So in the meantime, a few weeks ago, I held a emergency communications committee meeting and brought this back up. Police department, sheriff's office, fire department, ambulance service, emergency management, all of the emergency services agencies are on board with we've got to do something. And sitting still and doing nothing is something, but that's not the right thing to do. So I've reached out to Motorola, who built Warren County's system about 7 years ago. Their system includes everybody pretty much in Warren County. Police, fire, EMS, county fire, their park system, their coroner's office, the school systems, everybody in Warren County is on their system. Building a system like we're talking about, you could eventually add on to it and go that big because we would have a backbone. But basic, I'm just wanting to explain what basic I think we need is to build us a system. A new tower location would be included, probably out in the park area or wherever we would determine with Motorola's help. Build a new tower site, put up a local backbone, and then when KSP comes through, or it could be tied in at the same time, because right now you're at least 18 months from being able to get radios for the same reasons you can't get vehicles. So I'm presenting this right now because it's time to start talking in the dual body situation, in the city and county environment, that something's going to have to happen. Hot off the press, 10 minutes before I got here, I got the proposal from Motorola. they've got basically not a blank sheet, but a blank canvas on how we could design for funding. You could just write a check. If you had the funding, you could just write a check. They would come in, turnkey, build you a system, or they've got a payment plan. As more information comes, as we get into more conversation, the payment plan part of it is actually better for us, because as long as you're making payments, anything that's new in their system, if you get new software upgrades, if you get new patches, if there's problems that do present themselves, that because of the way they write those agreements, those contracts, they just implement that stuff. So at the end of a 10-year, which is the length of the longest time, at the end of the 10-year duration of payments, all of the software and everything that could be in that system is completely up to date. And before they turn it over, they do a review, and you might have a 10-year-old frame, but the basic radio components and the computer components and everything are the software and everything within those systems are brand new. So anyway, I'm gonna let Matt come up and talk for a little bit, and then I'll come back and give you some bullet points, and if you've got any questions, then I'll try to answer those as best I can. So come on up.
The only thing I really have to say is one of our worst areas is out Morgantown. Once you pass Hardison Road out the Morgantown area, you have hardly any radio traffic at all. As an example, last week I was out on Flat Rock Road. I was out of my vehicle. Dispatch was calling for a county unit. Keyed up several times on my radio, nothing. They could not hear me at all. So I go get my truck. Usually they can hear me while I'm in my truck. Get my truck, key up, nothing. Nobody can hear me at all. So I finally took off going down Morgantown Road, got just about to Stevenson Road, and they finally picked me up on my radio inside my truck. Same area. I was out Pilot Knob, had a vehicle hit a cow, wasn't nothing major or no emergency or anything. Hit a cow, go out there, go 97, nobody can hear me. So I get on my phone, I call dispatch, I said, y'all not copying my radio traffic? They didn't copy anything. That was inside my vehicle. Get out of my truck, get on my portable, nothing. So I couldn't call in nobody's driver's license, I couldn't call in nobody's information at all, no vehicle information, nothing. Had to take pictures of it, which is a safety issue. I had to take pictures of it and then get on my cell phone and call and run everything through the cell phone, which is, to me, is a big safety issue for me to be on my cell phone. No matter if it was just a 45 or not, we all know what could happen while we're on a scene. But that's really my fear, is we're going to get out there, so a unit's going to be calling for backup on something, and nobody's going to hear them. I mean, there's nothing worse than screaming over the radio for help or backup when you're getting shot at or beat up, and nobody's going to hear you. I think it was Friday, myself and Deputy Blackburn was out, again, back out Morgantown Road area around Flat Rock. We had an emergency call, guy was not breathing, they just needed somebody to perform CPR. Ambulance told them that, it'd be 15, 20 minutes before they can get there, so of course we can get there a lot faster than the ambulance can. We get out there, again, nobody can hear us. Their dispatch is yelling at us, what's the status, what's going on. They couldn't hear anything we were saying. So the only way we could talk to them at that time was to go back outside in our cruiser, truck, whatever, and talk to them over the radio. While somebody's laying on the floor, I think he had a massive heart attack. I mean, to me, it's a big safety issue. And it's not just, of course, you have several roads out that area. I mean, you got Holland Brothers, Sam Holland Brothers, Flat Rock, Stone Road, Pilot Knob, all that out there, and you have no signal. Hardison, you have nothing. There's been many times I've been out there and nobody copied my radio traffic.
What'd you say, Bob, 700 megahertz?
Digital, yes.
Do we have, I mean, will that give us 100% coverage anywhere in the county? Anywhere?
Motorola won't give you 100% of anything.
Well, what are we,
What is our system now?
Right now,
What percentage of the county?
we're lucky to have 70%. Would you say?
I would say, because there's other areas, like you get out, Price's Mill area, Dareville Road, you have no traffic out there either, no signal. Out in Gold City,
City police can't talk inside Kentucky Downs, correct? Or the school.
I mean, you go out Gold City, Barnstable Road area, you don't have much of a signal.
so where do you think we would be, Bob, or Matt? It's a 700 megahertz, the frequency there.
The propagation maps and what they're presenting here. Of course, like I said, they won't tell you. Nobody will sell you something that's 100% because they can't attain 100%. There's always going to be some place that pops up. Warren County spent $7.5 million on their system, and they are at 95% anywhere in the county,
So what,
if we're lucky. Because we've got, like I say, you got the school system. City police radios don't work inside the school buildings. The Kentucky Downs, the main gaming hall. Yeah, you can't get out.
Well, you're gonna have that even with the new system, right? Somewhat?
No,
Well,
they
you're still 90 or 95%.
95. You're gonna have spots.
But will the new system work inside a school building?
That's probably some of the 5% that in Warren County. Warren South, they have issues. Warren County has issues inside of, but they're away from the towers.
Will the Motorola rail let us sample? Will they let us have a trial use?
Oh, I have one of Warren County's radios on my desk. I can, without having a sub location in our county, I can sit at my desk right now and talk all over Warren County on one of their portable radios. To answer your question, yeah, they'll let us.
But if a sheriff's deputy is out in the Morgantown Road area with that radio you've got, would we be able to take that radio and see if they're going to be able to communicate on that radio?
I can tell you right now, it will work. The problem is, it's working off of their towers in Warren County. They'll give us a propagation study. These maps that are included in this, that like I say, I just got 10 minutes before I come in here. They'll give us all kinds of coverage. This is 95%, I believe, what they said, on the hip. But you gotta pay for it. The better coverage you get, the more expensive it's gonna be. What they're gonna propose for us is one site. Here, the tower that we're on right now is the Comcast tower out on McClendon Road. Their proposal is to build us a brand new tower site, probably over around the park, or unless we can find a better place to put it. 250 to 300 foot tall tower, and then have all the FAA requirements and all that kind of stuff. The proposal has the most expensive radios. We just put a $5,000 radio in my truck so I can communicate with Warren County. That's the radios they're proposing. We don't have to take those. We can go to a junior radio. They will tell us if we want a less expensive radio, what it's going to do to our capabilities. They're just giving me something to start with for today.
Will the radios that we just purchased for the police department work with this system?
No, those are 450 megahertz, and we're talking about 700. Those are 450 digital cable, but they're not digital. I haven't looked. I just got this thing before coming in here, so I don't know if it has my back.
Is this the only company that does this sort of work, Motorola? Is that, are there
There are other companies that do it, but KSP's backbone is Motorola. And then you get into the problems with, I don't know what the term is, but Kenwood radios not talking to Motorola systems. They say it can work, and then it don't. So we've already got into that, where we try to talk Kenwood, and then we Motorola and vice versa.
So did Motorola send you, I mean, I know in that last meeting, you asked the sheriff, the chief, the police chief, the fire chief, everybody to give you a list of what all equipment they needed, and you submitted that to the folks there at
That's
Motorola.
what this proposal built on.
And they give you pricing on that just a few minutes before we come in here.
Yes.
How much is
After Matt's talk, I want to add this. With tying into the KSP network, we would have to have a microwave shop to one of probably Warren County's, would be the best one, the preferred location to tie into KSP's backbone. And they haven't probably knows more about this terminology than anything than I can, but you got to tie into KSP's backbone. So we would probably have a microwave shop to them to get into their backbone, which would give us access to towers in Logan County, Warren County, Allen County, and wherever, so.
So Bob, as far as KSP goes, I'm going back in my mind here. There was a funding problem a few years back ago. They only got so far with these towers. Now, is that funding changed now? I mean, are they going to come on with these towers here?
They're actually, there's already a tower network in place for, and I don't remember the term, but it's the universal towers. It's like it's slipping my mind, but there are towers in place that instead of building new tower locations, they're going to utilize the towers that are already in place.
Well,
So,
I'm with the county attorney on this. To me, I think it's unacceptable to have a sheriff's deputy or any emergency responder in an area where we know they can't communicate, if there's something we can do that can make it where they can communicate.
yes. And the point I was getting ready to make is, by tying into Warren County's backbone, the problem he's having out there, using a tower site coming in from the backside of that area, that blank area would be gone.
What happens if you, to get us out of this, I didn't realize we had 70%. I've heard numbers before, I didn't know it was that low.
I'll tell you this, it wasn't that low when the radios were better. They deteriorated down.
To get us out of a very critical situation, do we have mobile repeaters on in our vehicles?
I don't think anybody does. Do you guys have any mobile radio repeaters? We don't
What
have
is the
any.
ambulance, what do they have in there? You said that they had something
Do
different.
they have some repeaters in there?
Nobody right now has a mobile repeater. The fire department has talked about it.
EMS has mobile repeaters in there.
Not for the radios, though.
They just,
Yeah,
They just did it?
yeah,
Well, that's news to me.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that helped
And
them
that,
a lot.
again, they're doing what they can to fill in the stop gaps.
Well, after they done that, I think if I didn't misunderstand them, they give them 95% coverage of this county with those mobile repeaters.
I could see that. I could see that, but it doesn't let them talk to anybody with a 700 megahertz system.
No, I
It covers this
I agree
county
with
and
that.
this county only.
Yeah, Simpson County, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, we've been talking around you. You say you got, what are the numbers you got from Motorola?
The bottom line on this is 2.7 million.
I'd say the 10-year plan would be the way to go.
What's the timeline, David, to do everything you're talking about? What is the timeline that they propose?
It would depend upon what we want to have happen. We're pretty sure we guarantee nothing's going to happen in the next 18 to 24 months because you can't get the equipment.
Well,
You can't get the tower.
understand, Sam, that 2.7 million, that included Simpson County Sheriff's Office, Franklin Police Department, Simpson County Ambulance Service, and the fire, Franklin Simpson
Fire
Fire and Rescue.
Emergency
So the point being, the ambulance service is its own taxing district to kind of cover what their portion would be. Obviously, the county's responsible for the sheriff, the city would be responsible for the PD, the city and the county would jointly be responsible for the fire department. So it's not like, oh, the county has to come up with 2
I understand that, but
Yeah,
still.
It's still, and here's the thing, a few years ago, while I was still a commissioner and we were having this discussion, this equipment was roughly 1.1 million.
Correct.
And here
It's
we
much
are,
higher.
here we are 5 years later, and we're talking 2.7.
It's not gonna get cheaper.
It's not gonna get any cheaper.
And in 10 years, you're gonna be redoing it, once you pay it off, so it's gonna be a perpetual.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of that 10 years, they haven't put it in writing, but their verbal prediction is that that system would be good for at least another 7 years.
So this plan that you've got it in a format that you can email out
Yes.
to all of us, the sheriff, the police chief, and everybody
Yeah.
can take a look at it.
I was planning on sending it to the Emergency Services Committee this afternoon.
Okay.
Now, you said the radio you had in there, the Warren County, works
Yes.
anywhere in the county.
Yeah. I can sit at my desk right now and talk to Smiths Grove
So is
on a
it,
portable, which is unreal.
but
Blows Motorola's mind up.
if one of those were in, if somebody from Warren County was in Simpson County, you could talk to them anywhere in the county?
Yeah.
Could we not contract with Warren County and just buy radios and not have to build a tower?
They want to charge $50 per radio per month.
Well, that sounds like a whole lot cheaper than 2.7 million.
Well, for about 3 years.
I mean, this
Or what?
isn't gonna last.
If Warren County,
So,
Warren County's proposal is they would come down here and build a tower site and then charge us same thing. They aren't, we can add radios to their system if it's advantageous to be able to speak, talk to them on accident scenes and stuff like that, individual, like ambulance service. They would let us add radios to their system, but they're not interested in just putting more radios on their system and make their system work harder. They would like to add a location down here. And Ronnie's talked about it. He said, we'll come down there and build you one and tie it into our network. But it won't be any cheaper than what we can do with Motorola and do our own. I mean, I could get him to do
I think we need to look at
You
4 or 5
get them to
different
do a
options,
proposal?
but
Yeah, I'll ask Ronnie what they would do. He's not gonna, he's probably not, I'll ask him what they would do if they want to come down.
But I also think the quickest solution, even if we have to pay for a contract with them for a little while, it sounds to me like we could contract with Warren County to put some radios on a lot quicker than 18 months, and it provides the coverage we need.
You're not gonna be able to buy the radios though. The radios aren't available right now. If we ordered the radios right now, at best, we're looking at 18 to 24 months to get them.
Chip
Well,
issues again.
if they can do a proposal, let's take a look at it too, but go ahead and send this one out today. But I agree, and I say I agree, I think probably everybody here, and surely the members of the fiscal court agree that we don't want a sheriff's deputy out in that part of the county that can't communicate on the radio.
That's just a disaster waiting to happen. So,
The last proposal we had from them 3 years ago was quite a bit lower than this one, but it also did not include a new tower site. Everybody I'm talking to, it doesn't matter. And I'm for building a new tower site because Comcast is getting harder and harder and harder to deal with at their site. I believe we can use that site as a backup. We could put a little infrastructure on it and have it as a backup, but it's not something where I'm not comfortable trying to put a new system on their infrastructure with us having zero control over it.
Bob, did you say that the school system could be on this as well?
That's a good point. Anybody, electric plant board, Warren Rural Electric, school system, any other, agency, I'd say governmental agency that wanted to participate, it would cause the price to go up, but you'd spread the price per agency
But could you
down.
charge them the monthly fee like Warren County is suggesting to?
It could be done. And with our own tower site, we could the cellular carriers and other places around are begging to find tower sites to put equipment onto. So, for lack of a better term, as a revenue generator, we could rent site on our own tower, space off the tower, and get some money paid back towards it. So, this is just a base proposal. I'll send it out to the communications committee. But I thought, I really believe now's the time that we've got to get serious about trying to do something with our equipment. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next, gentlemen, and I know we've got the Parks Director and a few Parks Board members here, and we're glad to have y'all with us as discussion and action regarding Franklin Simpson Parks operation. Obviously, I'll just say this. I received a lot of calls about some things that's happened at the park, and I'm sure everyone in here did. The biggest question that I think come to me was, well, why don't you know what's happening at the park? Don't y'all fund the park? And the answer is yes, the city and the county funds the park with tax money, but the city and the county basically has no oversight on what happens at the park. So we're trying to figure out how park operation goes, if there's some way that we could get an explanation of how the park operation goes, how decisions are made. I know from talking to one of the board members who's also an attorney that I guess they're drafting, y'all are working on drafting some updated guidelines for the park. Is there any information that can be shared? Is there anything that?
Not at this time. We still be working on it. I spoke with her earlier.
Is there any questions or concerns from anyone here about? Does the park have, somebody can come to the microphone, Terry, Chuck, somebody, I have a couple of questions. Does the park have regular board meetings, regularly scheduled board meetings?
Yes.
And they're how often?
Here lately, it's only probably every other month. Or if a need arises, we've had a couple of reasons to meet here lately.
So, so y'all are working on like kind of some different guidelines on how.
Yes.
Okay. When will they,
I couldn't tell you that. You spoke to him, same as I did.
Okay. So, but I'm assuming, I guess, the city and the county will be given a copy of those
Yes.
guidelines?
Yes.
Yeah, Tim did inform me of that. He hadn't been working on it very long. I mean, when I started drafting these for the square, I knew I needed a rose for maybe out there too. And I sent him what I had looked at, and I recently sent him what you all saw. And it's just gonna take a little time, and he's gonna have to get with the Parks Board 2 or 3 times and go through that. I mean, as they've got different concerns, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. You know, there's some things that they may not have out there or don't want to have out there. I don't want to go into detail because I don't know. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Parks Board, but you know, they've got to decide whether they want to have alcohol out there or not. I know the general sentiment has been in the past no, but that's all the Parks Board decision. That's why we've got the Parks Board. So Tim's going to draft it, take it to them, and then he did say he would send it to all of us at some point in time in the future.
I guess my only question is, and you said you're meeting every other month. If an event comes up between this meeting and a meeting 2 months from now, does the board have a meeting, or does the Parks Director just make the call on whether or not that event?
We've had meetings on things
Okay.
like that, Mark.
All right.
I think, Joe, probably what few calls I've got.
Do what?
What few calls that I have got concerning things at the park, probably were COVID related, you know, why the park's closed, why this is not clean, why that's not clean, when the park is open. And, I think what I'm hearing is that every single dollar bill now that goes to the park is taxpayers' money, every dollar. And I think some people are wanting more accountability of where those dollars are being spent. They want to know where these dollars are being spent. I know that since I've been on the fiscal court, I've never seen your budget. I've never seen your budget. And we fund the park 50%. Say, roughly rounded off $250,000, and I don't have a clue where the money's spent. I don't know.
And that's what I've been asked, y'all fund do you know? No, I've never seen a financial,
It's
anything.
been submitted. I mean, I know Terry submits a budget. He works on a budget every year.
At the end of each quarter, I send something to the total financial report where
Okay.
our profit and loss statement.
Okay, but I mean, I just hadn't been handed, something that shows, man.
Yeah.
We
I
got
know
a
there's
we got a
something that's
wonderful
reported.
park. We got a wonderful park. But I think a lot of people out here want some more. I'm sure you've probably heard that 1,000 times.
I hear it all the time.
They want more and more and more. Of course, it's gonna take more and more and
It
more.
takes more and more and more. I'll tell you, I've been out there a long time. Every time it seemed like we came to fiscal court or whoever about just wanting to take care of employees, raises, annual raises, nothing extra. It always seemed like it turned into some big project. Here, we're gonna give you a big lump sum of money, but here's what you're gonna do with it, Here, what improvements do y'all think you need? Well, it'll come in a big lump form of money. Well, that still doesn't take care of your employees. That doesn't take care of every day-to-day operation things. You got mowers that need to be replaced every so often. They don't last forever. You got trucks that need to be replaced. All that stuff, guys, has got to come from somewhere. We had bingo for a long time that took care of that. We made a decision to get out of it. It was not profitable. I couldn't give raises based on bingo money because it may be there, it may not be there, no matter what the employees wanted. We recently got an increase to give some employees raises. Greatly appreciated. That's what works. That keeps them happy. I don't have to listen to them. You don't have to listen to them. That's what works.
Well, concerning the raises now, I asked the judge about the raises. I think the judge communicated to somebody that said it was absolutely. Since I've been on fiscal court, I've never been asked for an employee raise at the park. Never been asked. But when I started that procedure, there was absolutely no pushback on the money. None. So I know the funding, you guys can't do so much with the funding. But being part responsible for the funding, I sometimes wonder, does the park board itself need to be involved in the worries about the money? Maybe the city needs to take the park system over. Maybe the county needs to take the park system over. So you guys don't worry about the money part of it. Put it back on the people that's been elected. We got to have a park.
Yep.
And I'm proud of our park.
Well, it's
Our
just
park
like,
needs more right now. But you're going to have to have more money.
yeah. And it's just like what you all talked about earlier. The increase in number of people coming to the county. It's
Exactly.
only going to increase how many people we have out there, the events we offer, the sports that we offer. Everything we do is going to require more
I
money
sometimes
eventually.
wonder what it would be like, Parks Board and Terry, how it would be for you guys if you didn't have to worry about the funding mechanism. If you didn't have to worry about it.
I'm going to throw something out there, and I've thrown it out to Marty. I've thrown it out to several other ones been on my board before. Sometimes think about what a small Parks and Rec tax would do. I know nobody wants to hear taxes being increased. Understand it. If you could lower fees for kids to play, say if it's $25 flat across the board, how many more kids would you have come out there?
What's the fee now for a kid to sign up to play?
They're all different, Mason, depending on what league they're in. To be honest, off the top of my head, I can't quote all that. Terry could probably tell you.
Like, Little League's like $60, we're doing flag football, starts real soon, it's $55. And, you know, it's pretty reasonable, but based on the fact that most of them is what we do. But girls softball is 55, kickball is 50, pretty reasonable from outsiders, if you compare it to those.
But something in that effect, just like extension tax, you know. It doesn't have to be huge. Take some of the burden off of you guys. Where are you going to come up with the money from? I'd greatly love to, you know, and had talked about it for years. I think our park would stand a splash pad. I mean, that's one thing, and, you know, you bring it up to certain people in the community, and at the time I brought it up, I didn't know the water park thing or whatever was being talked about, you know, inside the loop. So they just, you know, they brushed it off as you know, something's being talked about. So, I mean, it's just an idea, guys, to think about when you're thinking about where you're going to get your money from.
You know, not since I've been here, but the past fiscal courts have kicked in a lot of money for capital improvements at the park, a bunch of money, and the city as well. And I really appreciate that, but I don't know about a tax. I mean, I hadn't thought about that, Chuck.
Well, I
That's
think,
just something to think about, you know, I mean.
I think it's good to know that y'all are working on some guidelines that may spell out the things you can or cannot do at the park. For what it's worth, me personally, I would be more in favor of the events not allowing alcohol to be on the park's grounds.
I think that's a consensus with everybody, Mason.
I think if we
don't think it's-
eliminate the thought or the idea that you're gonna have an event with alcohol involved, it kind of eliminates the events that you may not want to happen at the
Right.
park. Because, I mean, while that event going on is over there with their alcohol and everything else, over on the playground could be a family or 3 or 5 with kids.
Right. And just let you all know what we do, our meetings. This year, we've had to have, we spend as much time now dealing with ball boards and parents, more than I ever have since I've been out there.
Dealing with what?
Ball boards and
Oh.
parents. I've had 2 different ball boards or ball leagues in front of our board this year because of disagreements, money being taken, all that kind of stuff that we've had to listen to this year. We've never had to listen to in the past. More of this in this 1 year than I have since I've been on the board.
Well, we'll be interested to see these guidelines. We appreciate what y'all do. I mean, the parks is, I mean, you go to other communities, look at community parks, I think ours is way ahead, so.
Well, we just, you know,
Just like
with what
the
money we
weekend.
got, we try to do the best with it, not waste it, not,
Yeah.
you know, spend it where we don't need to be spending.
Does anybody else have any more questions or
Does
comments, concerns?
the leagues, like the soccer league, do they pay money? Do they give money back to the park? Soccer, say the soccer
They
league?
pay a player participation fee, $5
Okay.
per league player.
Okay.
That goes to pay for maintenance, light, whatever.
Gotcha.
But most time for their fees, I mean, it's just enough to cover uniforms, supplies, you know, that they provide.
I don't think you ever get enough out of the fees of the people out there to help pay the expenses at the park.
No.
But I will say, I mean, your idea there, also, maybe get a price on that, on the splash pad, get a price on maybe putting a dog park in at the park. Some of these bigger projects, get some cost estimates on that, so we have something to look at, because I've said I think our park's underutilized in this community. There's a lot of things that could happen at that park that hasn't been happening.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming anybody, most of it is a lack of funding. But there's things that we could do at that park for this community that could be really utilized, but until we have a scope or a cost of that, we'll never know what we can do. But I think we could help make some things happen out there if we had I know we give you all that 200,000, or the fiscal court did, and we did say, we wanted to plan, and then as that plan developed, you got the money, and I know that money was never geared towards the employee raises, which that's what we kind of geared that, or what we did gear that for this year. But there's a lot of places for improvements at the park, and more things to be done that the community can enjoy out there. So just a long-term plan would be good to have.
And about the dog park, Marty, I mean, we did have, we've had organizations come to us, looking at doing that kind of thing. We okay it, they get into it, and they either don't come up with the money to do it, or something happens, and so we're kind of left, we get talking about it, and then nothing ever happens with it, and those are
I wasn't just saying
sponsoring that,
and I understand that, and that was just throwing that as an example.
Yeah.
I don't know, I never would have thought about what is it, disc whatever that's. I didn't even know that existed, and I seen something about a pickleball or something. I don't even know what that is, but there's other people that know what these things are. Give us an idea of the things that you think could go over well in the community, and they're capital improvements, and I think this board or this body of people here can help make those capital improvements happen if we know what they cost and it's something we can plan on.
Yeah. Like I said, I just think, when we do stuff like it, I kind of go like one project at a time, instead of a big lump and just throw it all in there and say, here we're going to this, decide what you're going to do with all this money,
Well, and like Marty said, y'all come up with some ideas, bring them here.
Yeah, don't automatically assume that we're gonna say, no, we ain't giving you the money.
Yeah, no.
Come up with the ideas and assume you're gonna come up here and they're gonna like, yeah, that's a great idea, we're gonna help you out.
We may still say we're not gonna give you the money, but we may say in 2 years we can do it, but we've got to have ideas to be able to do that.
Because I think the one thing that we all share in common, everybody on the court, everybody on the commission, and everybody on that parks board, the one thing that we do share in common is we want the park to succeed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
I got a question. So we're talking about money and funding and everything. Outside of the city giving money, outside the county giving money, is there any other type of resources or avenues that you can go to get money yourselves to be able to get the things that we're talking about that the park could use?
Possibly.
Like grants or anything like that. Is there any other avenues that can be done by us as a board, like the park board or the park director?
Nate, with being on there, we've discussed it. That if there's any grants available that anybody knows about, whether we hear them or we don't hear them, wish they'd bring them to us,
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Terry, I will send you contact information for the lady at the Brad. You can touch base with her from time to time, because the Brad is very good about helping put grants together for certain things and notifying you when grants are available that the park could use.
And I'm gonna say this wherever on camera, I've said it before. You all had bingo, along with other organizations in this community that had bingo, that were making money at bingo, until there were slot machines put in at the state line, and that money took away from the bingo games in this community. So I think that if anybody is talking to anybody at the Mint, they could take some of that money and put it back into these nonprofits, because it ended up costing these nonprofits a lot of money. So that's why you don't have the bingo anymore.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Chuck, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all coming. Any other business from the commission?
No.
I have one quick question from the court side. At some point, I would like to see these two bodies give myself, the mayor, and Kenton the ability to formulate a progressive plan on moving the industrial authority rate in a different direction.
I totally agree.
Is that a yes from everybody? Let's put something together.
I've been saying that rate needs to be at 60/40.
All right. Okay.
Decades.
Any other business? Gentlemen on the court, I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting on the fiscal court side.
Second.
Marty made the motion, Nate seconded. All in favor, aye?
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the city commission. We have a motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposition? We're adjourned.